good morning. Welcome to Carte's Crossing as we continue our exploration of Stephanie Dowrick's book, The Universal Heart. Okay, so we're still on the first chapter. We are up to, let's do, receive what others have to offer, release love from the limits of the past. Okay, so that might be a bit of a reread, but that's okay. So let's begin with Tarot, Deck of Heroes, and let's have a look and see what the message is from the cards if we're talking about the universal heart. Oh, this pulled out, so we're going to do this one here and this. Okay, these two and one more. Oh, okay, two more. Okay, so let's have a look at the first slot. So we're talking about the Page of Wands. We're talking about drive, motivation, desires, a creative energy. It does feel like we've got this energy that's going on that's giving us a lot of drive, a lot of motivation. With the new beginnings, new possibilities in regards to love. So that's Page of Wands and Ace of Cups. Okay, so it does feel like there's that motivation and drive to start fresh. Then we've got the King of Wands and the Empress. Okay, King of Wands and Empress. So I do feel like there's a sense of looking always for adventure and seeing the creating the abundance, the bountiful in one's adventures, creating life in such a way, giving birth to adventures, giving birth to fun, to passion, to creativity, thinking about what lies ahead for one. Here we have Nine of Wands with perseverance in regards to connections. So this is remind us that it does take work. It does take a bit of work with connections and things like that. So there's quite a bit there to think about when you're thinking about a new beginning, a new possibility with drive and motivation, looking for new possibilities in regards to creating something new in one's life, giving birth to something new, being creative, full of passion, desires, that sort of thing. And then we're all nurturing that energy, and then we've got the sense of persevering, keep going, don't give up. You know, you're a real survivor in regards to connections with somebody. So I think that's kind of really important there. So that's the cards. Yeah, giving you something to sort of think about. Okay, so let's read. I think we're going to reread this a little bit here. Receive what others have to offer. Love comes fully to life when we can also receive with grace what others are willing to give us. Openness of spirit is again called for often a yielding of certainties. To receive love, we must accept other people as they are. That's already quite a challenge. And we must accept their way of loving us, at least when their intentions are well-meaning. Our irritations can so easily get in the way here, as well as our fixed ideas about what love should look like or how it should be expressed. Someone makes us a meal when actually we long to talk. Someone gives us something for our sake, and we feel frustrated, not grateful. Someone asks us tenderly how we are just at that moment we're about to solve an internal problem, or our favourite show is starting on TV. These failures of good intentions crisscross our daily lives. We may rail against them, we may call them failures to love, but meeting our needs immediately and in the ways we want it to is not all that love's about. That's an infant's experience of love. That's the good mother instantly supplies what's needed. The same mother becomes bad when she occasionally requires the baby to wait a few minutes or to tolerate a discomfort that she can't fix. growing out of babyhood with a far greater range of experience available than an infant has, we can loosen that tight equation of love with need. We will always have difficulty seeing love in what we are being offered if our minds tune in only to what's wrong or absent. If love is to smooth out those irritations, a larger vision is called for. Goodwill needs to be assumed and complaints must be curtailed, so that in love's presence we can recognize what's on offer. However odd its disguise, love opens our eyes, it opens our hearts also. Release love from the limits of the past. If it's love too that can change your views entirely about your rights, your disappointment, your convictions, about what you are owed, and your certainty that in difficult situation only the other person is wrong. You're perfectly free to cultivate those self-justifying and resentful thoughts indefinitely, and this will cost you dearly. Switching your intention from the wrongs that have been done to you to an awareness of how you can make a complex situation tolerable is strengthening as well as healing. That loving, self-respecting attitude can make an impossible situation possible. It can also transform your view of what a difficult situation is. And as it does that, it will enhance how you experience yourself. Cultivating a sense of injury is deeply unsustaining. It keeps your mind fixed on what's wrong. It falsely strips you of your power to see what's right. Moving on from that sense of injury, or at least seeing it in the context of a range of different experiences, does not mean condoning what has been wrong or pretending that what has happened did not happen. On the contrary, it simply acknowledges the dynamic life force that moves through us and brings us inevitable forward. First, though, we must allow that. Here is a wonderful example of that profound change that an apparently small shift in attitude and insight can achieve. The story is told by Nikki Brown, who is a publicist, an arts coordinator, and the mother of an adolescent daughter. She was talking about a relationship with her own mother, Moya, that had been conflicted and disappointing for much of Nikki's life. Our history together had been so checkered, so fraught with misunderstandings, irritations, and unpredictable behaviours that I determined to try and tackle it head on, Nikki explains. At the age of 52, I had a strong sense of this being the right time, that as the oldest child I should face my demons and confront my mother. This was by no means easy for Nikki, even to contemplate. I am scared of confrontation, and my mother, even after all these years, still had the capacity to give me a look that would set my heart thumping, my pulse racing, and my face to suffuse with heat. I've always been scared of her, which is probably why so many of our arguments ended with me yelling, "That's it, I'm going," and exiting in a riot of slammed doors and instant regret. Both of us, I'm sure now, harboured very deep-seated anger about our relationship. I was a disappointment to her with a succession of failed relationships, jobs, and marriages. She was not the mother I longed for, which was for a spontaneous person, able to down tools in the kitchen and hand over to me, or someone to whom I could open my heart without her being judgmental. Over the years we had confrontations that were bitter, and we never really got to the root of our mutual difficulties. I longed for her approval, and I think that she longed for my understanding of her own sense of failure and inadequacy. After a particular difficult Christmas, and with no real confidence in a positive outcome, Nikki nevertheless had an internal shift in the way she saw her relationship with her mother. Put plainly, she wanted things to be better than they were, and was willing to set aside those inner whisperings that told her it was a waste of time, that she could only get hurt, that it was hopeless even to make the effort. Instead, she asked Moya to join her for lunch in the city where she lived so they could really talk. "Nikki, I knew what I wanted to say, that it was time to acknowledge our differences, to agree that our time together might be limited, and that at the end of the day she was my mum and I was the oldest daughter. I was scared that the meal would not please her. I felt all the usual terrors of saying how I felt, but I gritted my teeth and opened with my hope that we could do things differently from now on, please." For the first time I sensed her own nervousness and discomfort at what I might be about to say, and I relaxed, allowing our eyes to meet and reached for her hand. We spent the whole day talking. She talked of her sense of the failure as a mother, or the feeling that she had abandoned my sister and me as teenagers when she and my stepfather went to live overseas. She cried, but I made no move towards her, as I was determined we should face it all without the complications of an embrace. We sat together later in the warmth of my house, eating sandwiches, drinking coffee, and edging towards each other in a way that had never been more seemed available. But that's not the end of the story, Nikki goes on. My mother died 6 months later of a sudden, total, unexpected brain hemorrhage. I looked at her in the hospital before they withdrew life support, my heart so full of longing for her survival. Incredulous and overwhelmed, I wrote her a letter, which I placed in her coffin, and told her of my joy that we had really communicated that day. The 6 months that we had after the conversation had been a time of healing, closeness, and understanding. That time changed our relationship, but my regret is profound, that I lacked the courage to say those things and open up to her earlier. I wish so much that we had more time to build on that and to enjoy each other's differences rather than railing against them as we did for so many years of our relationship. Nikki's courageous action shows brilliantly how an increase in generosity in our way of loving can profoundly enhance our sense of what's possible in our relationships, and it can certainly dramatically change our sense of what we ourselves are capable of creating. It's clear that Nikki could have nursed a sense of righteous indignation and disappointment about who and what her mother was, what had passed between them, and especially about Moya's failure to be the person Nikki wanted her to be, to the day of Moya's death, and maybe to the day of her own death also. She would have found plenty of people to agree with the negative view of her mother. After all, she had been hurt. She could have nursed such a hurt, but what a loss of opportunity that would have been. It's a willingness to allow love to move along our thoughts and guide our actions that shifts the connection between people most effectively. Love frees us from the self-defeating need to defend a shaky ego by being right, even when this makes us feel horribly wrong. It also shows us that some things are worth doing for their own sake, whatever the outcome. For myriad reasons, it might not have been possible for Moya to respond to what Nikki was offering. Would that have made Nikki's effort any less worthwhile? I don't think so. Recognizing our capacity to affect other people positively, we become far less dependent upon a specific outcome. Acting freely, we become free. Perhaps as you read Nikki's stories, your thoughts were already flying to the relationships in your life where you could show greater concern, be more open or spontaneous, or perhaps offer or accept forgiveness, or where you could see someone else's differences and shortcomings with greater understanding, or look past those to the real person and the love you share. Any shift of consciousness that allows you to think about other people more generously is highly significant. It can heal wounds. It can certainly save you from agonies of regret. It can restore your capacity to give and receive love in all your relationships. Okay, that's it for today. Don't forget to check the links down below. Check the links on my channel. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when the next video will be uploaded. And a big thank you to my Ko-Fi family and supporters. Thank you to my subscribers as well. Really, really appreciate it. Take care and blessed be.